Hello everyone and welcome back to Louis Dowdeswell's podcast. I have an amazing guest today. He's a very old friend, a mentor on the trumpet and in life, and a very, very special man indeed. He's Mr. Simon Gardner. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, good.
Fantastic. Simon is one of Britain's greatest lead trumpet players of all time, I'd say. When I think of Simon, Simon's playing, when I tell people about Simon's playing, the first thing that comes to mind is whenever I get the amazing chance to sit next to him and play in a big band, it's the sound of the room after the note. It just sounds different when Simon's on lead. Just that vibrance that I get to hear in the room, and it's a magical thing. So thank you for blessing us with your amazing playing, and welcome. We're at Prozone Music again, courtesy of Will Watson. And yeah, we're just going to have a conversation. I've got no specific prompts today. I'm going to go with the vibe and see how things go. But maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about your story, how you grew up playing, where you're from, and
okay. Well,
stuff.
I'm from North London, a little town called Arnesgrove, which is North London, yeah. And I went to a Catholic school run by the Jesuit priests, and it was all boys, and they had a tannoy system, and they just before the lunchtime one day, they said, "We've got 2 trumpets if anyone fancies playing the trumpet." And I didn't know anything about the trumpet at that point. And my friend said, "Do you fancy doing it?" I said, "Yeah, okay, let's give it a go." By the time we got up to the music room, one of the trumpets had gone, so there was just one left. So we both had to sing a scale. And I sang it in tune, and the other guy didn't, so I got the trumpet. So there, I'm now on a journey, which I had no idea what it entailed or anything. So, of course, after a few weeks, I just wanted to give it up. I thought, I didn't realise you had to practice.
Yeah.
Especially the things that I was told to practice, scales and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I tried to give it up, but they wouldn't let me because they needed players for the school orchestra. So I was forced to keep going. But
That's handy.
Yeah. But I'd always been interested in older music. I used to love the Glenn Miller story as a kid. My dad used to be into Bing Crosby and Ray Conniff and James Last and all those kind of easy listening kind of things. And it kind of rubbed off on me because I used to love listening to them as well. But what you used to get with those particular artists is great bands playing them. One of one of my dad's favourite albums was Bing Crosby and Louis Armstrong with the Billy May Orchestra, and of course it was obviously either Conrad Gozzo or I think it might have been Shorty Sherrick on lead trumpet. But it sounds phenomenal. It's just like the best playing by the best players that have ever lived, really.
Yeah.
Of a different era though, but they were incredible. But I still didn't really have my heart in playing it. But because I loved listening to Glenn Miller, I started to play along with the Glenn Miller records, and I learnt to play the lead trumpet line of "Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree," and of course I couldn't stop playing it. and then I learnt the other tracks on the album. Then I bought more albums, and then I bought the whole Glenn Miller collection, and I started to learn all of the parts, all of the solos, and that's at that point I'm hooked. It's too late. I used to come home from school, put the record player on, play along. Now I wasn't doing any proper practice. I wasn't playing scales or exercises, or someone bought me the album, but I wasn't interested. I did open it a few times and try to do a bit of double tonguing, but it just didn't interest me. I just put the record on. But so obviously I didn't always play Glenn Miller. There was all the other big bands. There was Tommy Dorsey, Benny Goodman. But I was still of the older generation of style of music. So I was quite good at playing Harry James style stuff. Although I never had the technique that Harry had, because he was like a virtuoso. But I used to try and learn and play all these things. And then one day I heard, on the radio, I heard Come Fly With Me, Frank Sinatra, and I just thought, oh my God, what's that? and because it's the big shout cross in the middle, and it's Conrad Gozzo and all those guys. And once I heard that, I thought, that's it. So I started buying all the Sinatra records, learning all the ensembles to that. And so my point really is that even though I wasn't doing proper, legit practice, I was playing and trying to play like the best players in the world. And every now and again getting sort of close, I suppose, A lot of people have often asked me, how do you manage to play lip shake so well? And I said, because I used to try and play them exactly like Conrad Gozzo. So if there's someone or something that you want to do and you like and you aspire to do it, you will find a way. And I found a way of playing the shakes exactly the way Gozzo did.
Yeah.
And so they're not a modern shake. You've got the Maynards and all that with the big wide shake where there's not any you can't hear the notes in between.
Yeah.
The Gozzo shake was more like a minor third, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned to do it, by listening and playing along with the greatest players. And of course I used to think that was the range of the trumpet, like up to a top G, as it is probably the proper range of the trumpet.
Yeah. And
then I went down to Edmonton's Market, Edmonton, North London, and I bought Maynard 61 for £1. And I took it home, and the first track is Olé.
All right.
And I put it on, and of course he starts off really low, and he works his way up, and then all of a sudden he's getting higher and higher, and I'm thinking, no, he's not going to go higher than that. And of course then he rips up to a double C, and I'm like, my God, I didn't know that was possible, So then there's another thing of trying to play high,
Yeah.
Now, I've always had a reasonable range, but I've never had that Maynard range. But I can play up to Gs and As and sometimes B flats. But never really.
I've heard some mega B flats on records from you.
Yeah,
huge.
But for some reason, it never wants to go higher than that. But I've never really aspired to go higher than that.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier you were talking earlier in the shop about if you want to do it, you'll find a way, and if you want to play high, you'll play high. You'll find a way of doing it. But I was quite happy having the range that was fine for me, and it's always been that way really. I'd love to be able to pick it up and go and C come out, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I've earned a good living over the years playing in the range that I can play, and it's worked well for me,
Some would call the cash register.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
But which of course that leads on to heroes of mine, and I've just mentioned Conrad Gozzo. And he, for me, has always been the one that I want to see. I've never, excuse me, I've never aspired to play like Conrad Gozzo, but I love the way he plays, and I love having that in your arsenal, like using it as part of your character. Because in a sense, like, as trumpet players, we have every player we've ever listened to is part of our character, because we take what we can from everybody, all the great things that they have to offer. And in those days, in the days of the late 50s, 60s, and before, of course, there wasn't pop music as we know it today. The Beatles weren't around at that point. As soon as they turned up, and the 60s and all the other big rock bands turned up, and then it gradually went into fusion with Earth, Wind and Fire and all the great Jerry Hay arrangements. So, but in the era of Gozzo and all the players of that era, they didn't have to do any of those things. They just had to play what they knew how to play best, and that's why it always sounds so incredible and so unique. If you listen to the Billy May records or the Nelson Riddle Orchestra backing Sinatra, there's a sound which is very hard to achieve these days. I mean, it can be done. There's some very clever players about, and there's a lot of great players about, but there was a difference in the way they played in those days. And I'll give you a good example. Nelson Riddle's son, Chris, came over to do a tour with Christine was in charge of the orchestra, but Chris Riddle was the guest artist, and he brought over the original parts to some of the great songs, and he brought over the original parts to some of the tracks from what's it called? Songs for Swinging Lovers, and there's a track called swinging down the lane. Now, there's before the big ensemble, there's a big trumpet solo. You go, da ba dee da 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 da, and it goes through, and then it goes into the ensemble. And if you listen to the solo, you would swear it's Conrad Gozzo playing it. And then it goes into the ensemble, and you can hear someone else take over, and it sounds like Conrad Gozzo taking over. And I thought maybe they overdubbed it, or I thought they probably didn't, but I mean, I didn't understand it. So anyway, he brought the parts over, and sure enough, on the part where the solo is, it says Manny Klein. So you've got like all these great players who had very, very similar sounds and very similar ways of playing, and they all were experts at doing it that way. But having said that, if you listen carefully, you can always tell when Conrad Gozzo takes over, because there's something else. And he's not I wouldn't say he's the most technically proficient player or anything like that. It's just there's something about his swagger, and he's got the sound of I mean, Bobby Shue talks about the one session that he did with Conrad Gozzo, and he was sitting next to him, and he said that there was like a bzzz in his ears as he was playing. He couldn't hear himself, and it was like a weird thing going on, and it was literally the enormity of the sound that Gozzo was producing. It was like taking over everything, you know. So he was, for me, like my hero. So I've always tried to, as I was growing up, tried to play very much like him, but then you can't do that. We have to be so adaptable in what
it's interesting you say that, because adaptable is a great word. I like to use that word when people talk about versatility, but it's an adaptability thing. You are what you do, and if all you do is play 3-4 sessions of big band music a day, you're going to be a big band king, right? But that world doesn't really exist anymore.
No.
So in order to make a living playing, you have to take on other roles, and that's great too. We all get an awesomely wide, diverse career. But yeah, I think you're right. That era of just banging out those big band charts is not really here anymore.
Not really. But you see, it's very hard to, because I mean, we've all been on all sorts of recording sessions where you have to play like legit, or play Dixieland, or play this or that, or put some horrible thing of pop music, some phrase which doesn't make any sense to a musician, but it makes someone a hell of a lot of money, you know. And there's less music these days, but there's still lots of great music as well.
Yeah.
But when you consider like the Earth, Wind and Fire and the Al Jarreau libraries with the incredible arrangements by Jerry Hay, and also amazing. The incredible playing by the team that did it, you know, the accuracy and the sound, the recording technique, the mix, the way that everything sounds just so beautiful, the feel. I mean, pop music is, a lot of people say, well, it's just kind of straight quavers, isn't it, or straight semi-quavers, but there's a lot more to it than that. There's a feel involved. You can't just...
Especially in it, you know, in that calibre of it. It's crazy, amazing, that stuff. Speaking of which, actually, there's a story. You're wearing a badge.
Yes.
You're wearing a Super C badge. And that was... Well, maybe you could tell everybody what that badge represents.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how it links back to... Well, maybe you can tell everyone how it might link back to Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's... obviously, I worked a hell of a lot over the years with Derek Watkins. And he was one of my mentors. He's one of the people... When I'm playing lead trumpet, I try to play like him more than anyone else, because having worked with him, I'll never forget, I did a session once, and as we do, he'd play a lead, then he'd say, fancy doing one side? I'd say, yeah, okay. And he played his one, and it sounded like he wasn't really trying that much, he was just going through the motions. And I got mine, I thought, right, I'm gonna. So I gave it my absolute utmost. And we went back to listen to him, and his sounded so much better than mine.
Oh, wow.
Because it's about technique, and it's about knowing how to do things the way what will sound best in that environment, in the recording environment. You know, you don't have to put your heart on your sleeve. You just... So I learnt a lot from playing with him.
Yeah.
And of course, we became good friends as well. You know, as we all do with each other. And of course, then he got cancer, and he unfortunately passed away. And I thought, when me and myself and Pete Beechall decided it would be great to do a tribute to him, because these people need to be honoured, you know. There was another great trumpet player who passed away, and nothing was really done for him. Kenny Baker. I thought he deserved to have some kind of memorial concert, but it never happened. So we weren't going to let that go. So we decided to do this concert together. Now, Derek was renowned as being a high note trumpet player. Having said that, some of his best playing, if you listen to, he did some recordings with the Metropole Orchestra, and they weren't. I don't think they're actually good enough to be put onto record, although I wish his family would do it, because everyone needs to hear these recordings. He does Misty, and I don't know who's the arranger, but it's the most beautiful thing you'll ever hear, and he plays it so incredibly beautifully. Pretty much, mainly the tune throughout, embellishing around the tune, and some improvisation as well. But it's just that's how Derek had a very good, sensitive way of playing. He wasn't just a lead trumpet player. However, he was a lead trumpet player, and he had a phenomenal range, like someone else who's sitting next to me has. And so the high note for the trumpet, the one that everyone talks about, is called a super C or a double C. So when we got the band together to do the concert, we decided to call it the Super C Big Band. And then Wendy Watkins, his wife, made some badges up, and that's what it is. That's the Super C Big Band badge.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, Derek was a very special character in the British trumpet scene, and I guess in the world in general for trumpet players.
Yeah.
What's your favourite story?
With Derek?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think you might not be able to print this one. But I was doing Guys and Dolls with him.
Is there a kid-friendly version?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it kid-friendly. We were doing Guys and Dolls, and the MD was highly sensitive to the cast, because they were there's a big-time actress from America, and he didn't want to upset her. But right in the middle of a scene, a quiet bit, Derek did a Trump. He did a Donald. And he corpsed the main girl, you know, and she looked down, and of course the musical director was absolutely livid. And he came over in the interview, he said, "I don't care who it was, that must never happen again." Right. So anyway, the next night, and now the MD was off that night, so it's the Dep MD on. So the same place, he just managed to summon up another, you know, did it. And of course, we couldn't play for laughing, you know. Anyway, so fast forward to about 2 weeks later, we're in the pub, and the MD, I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning his name, Jay Alexander, came up to Derek, said, "Derek," he said, "look, I don't mind you farting." I'll say it, farting. But he said, "Why do you always have to do it in the quiet bits?" He said, "Well, no one will hear it otherwise." So there you go.
That's fantastic.
There's a Derek story.
Very Derek. There are plenty more as well. It's renowned stories. But yes, I thank you for sharing all those awesome experiences. Do you want to, over the past, I don't know, maybe it's 10 years, you've started releasing some of your own little bits and pieces project-wise. You've got this book here, and we've got a CD that you made, and your son Tom is doing a CD at the moment.
That's right,
and, maybe you can tell us a little about what these all mean to you. And
what the book was that, you know, I'm sure you get the same thing. You get kids, they get in touch with you through Messenger and stuff, and they ask you questions. How do you do this? How do you do that? And you send back a whole big sheet of you write it, you need to type it all out, and you send it off to them, and then you get a message back saying thanks. and of course at the time I decided to do that, it was my son was learning or developing as a trumpet player, and I thought I really need to have something in writing that I can refer to. So instead of giving all these one-off answers, say, well, I've written a book, you can take that and answer all the questions in one place. So that's what I did. It's not a study book, because there's already too many fantastic, not too many, but there's many great study books that we all have our favourites and all that, and I can't add to that. But it's a collection of ideas that are tried and tested. I mean, there's a lot of what Bobby Shue teaches in there, and a few little stories, some pictures, and
inspiration.
Inspiration, yeah. It's I think it's an interesting book. At least when I've read it back, I thought, oh, did I write that? So I'm not an author or anything, but
that's a brilliant book. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I remember when it came out. It's great.
Yeah. But the other thing was, I bought an iMac for Thomas because I thought the future is writing, composing, and he wanted to go to college, and I thought I'll get an iMac and I'll get an interface and I'll get a microphone, so that it's there. It's for him to do because where I used to live, we had a big shed at the bottom of the garden. But I started messing around with it myself and putting down. I'd put a Jamie Abersol track on and then play along to it, recording it, put a bit of reverb on, and it's like cool. Like it's like a fantastic toy, the Logic and all that comes with it. Then I started multi-tracking, just like the ensemble to this, or like I think one of the first things I did was the trumpet parts, the trumpet blues, perfect. Just to a click,
Yeah.
Then I had an idea of maybe doing a few tracks, and then one thing led to another, and I decided to make a whole album just with a rim section and myself doing all the parts. So I'd do all the trumpet parts, all the trombone parts on flugelhorn, all the saxophone parts using muted trumpets, and it kind of worked. And if you mix it cleverly enough, it's a different version of tracks that So I did Give It One and We've Only Just Begun and all sorts of things like that. And I released it as an album, and it sold 1 million copies. And I'm now living in Spain, a Spanish island. No, I think it sold about 100 copies. And of course, in those days, it was before streaming, so I got 1,000 copies of that, 1,000 copies of the CD. And I've got 900 left of all of them. I've got boxes and boxes of them. So, but that's what I did. And then, of course, my son, he was inspired to do his own thing, and he booked a big band. Of course, you were there, and we put a load of tracks down. He got different arrangers to arrange original arrangements of standards. And I've been listening to the mixing, and he's been putting his solos down, and it's going to sound incredible. So
I'm very excited
when it comes out,
record.
everyone needs to get hold of a copy or stream it, whatever you do these days.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. It's an amazing band.
It was.
Simon's playing some great lead trumpet on it, as expected. And it's amazing. I kind of reminds me a little bit of just the general conversation we're having here about me requesting you as a teacher at the academy. It's funny because there's some amazing teachers at the Royal Academy of Music where I was very fortunate to study. And in my last year, I think maybe it was in my last year, I just thought, well, we'll go off on a whim and see if Simon wants to teach. And Nick Smart was the head of jazz at the time, and he was really up for Simon coming in and teaching us. But I remember we came for our first lesson, and you said, and well, you were almost like, well, I guess, should we just play together or something? Like, I don't know what there is necessarily to say. And they were some of the most inspiring lessons because we kind of just talked about a lot of these important matters, about these inspirations that you had, or the inspirational moments that you had, the stories. And that's a spark that sets you right off. I think we had a couple of really cool opportunities to get James Copus, me, Tom, your son, together, and you to play big band charts. You play lead trumpet, and they go down the section, and
we'll take turns.
Some of the most amazing experiences at college. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I remember you at the time being on the phone to you and say, "Well, I don't really teach all that much, but I guess I could," and it just turned out to be amazing. So.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of teaching is just coaching, which I'm not into that really. I mean, I'll give someone a lesson, and I'll say everything I've got to say in that first lesson, and that's after that is I think, well, what more can I say? Except keeping someone on the right path. But it's never really been my thing. So when I got contacted to do that, I didn't really know how I was going to approach it. But we talked about things. Sometimes not about trumpet playing. It'd be drinking and driving or something, which is very important subject if you're a musician, because you're going to be on a gig and you're going to be late at night, and you might have been tempted to have a few drinks.
We did actually have a conversation about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
I love that you remember that.
Yeah. But it's relevant within the music business, but we had good conversations, and then we'd have a play together, and that was the meat of it, really.
I remember I brought Let It Go to you very early on in its conception, because it was the first kind of major YouTube video I recorded, even though we didn't really know what was going to be made of any of that at the time. And I couldn't get it sounding right. I don't know what it was. I didn't feel comfortable with it. And you were very encouraging, and you were like, yeah, it sounds great. But you said something that really stuck with me. You just said, well, it ended up being clean. Like, I played it clean, but you said, try and play it unclean. Like, just try and play it without,
less perfect.
Less perfect.
With more humanity.
Yeah, and I tried it, and it didn't feel like me playing, because I was over-egging everything. But I think in the freedom of trying that out, it left enough space for it to actually get recorded and get done well and properly. And I think you're definitely an advocate of playing from the soul. I can tell that in your own playing. And that we know that perfectionism is definitely an evil thing. It stops you from.
I've got a good example. I did on my album. I did do. It was a tribute to all the different trumpet players who've inspired me. So one of which, when I was younger, was Harry James.
Yeah.
So I decided to do my version or take on Trumpet Blues, which is pretty much the same as the record, except I mix it up at the end with a few different things going on.
Yeah.
But the main start of the whole thing is just the trumpet section playing the theme. And I put each part down in one, listened back to it, and it sounded okay. But I could hear I was a bit early on an entry on that one, and so I started messing around with it. And I started changing this and putting that and moving that, and I got it perfect. And when I played it back, it sounded like an organ. So I had to do it all again, and I did it all in one take, each one. Maybe two passes to get the best one, and it sounds like a trumpet section. And it doesn't sound perfect. It sounds like 5 guys or 4 guys playing together in a room, and it doesn't sound phasey, and it doesn't sound too. It sounds just like it would sound if you listened to it on a gig. And I thought, well, that's the way it should sound.
It's interesting when when I record my big band in a proper studio, blah blah blah, and I look at the stems. It's kind of all over the place, but it sounds amazing. It's not that it's bad. It's just it doesn't look lined up like it would do if you were doing it on your own. And I do think in this day and age of recording ourselves, the kind of getting in your head side of things, I certainly struggle with this massively.
Well, I think we all do. I mean, when you see the music in front of you as a stem, you measure it by the length of the wavelength.
Yeah.
And if you see the one underneath is slightly smaller or slightly different, or you think, well, it's not going to be the same. But what it is it's the humanity in the performance which makes it sound the way it does. I never forget doing a jingle for someone. I went over to their house, and I did the first track, and then I tracked against it, and we did the end of this number, and we went over it and over it and over it, and I said, "What's wrong with it?" Because I couldn't work out what he wanted. He said, "Come and have a look." He said, "Look." He said, "Look, it's different." I said, "But listen to it. Does it sound different?" He said, "No. It just looks different." I said, "Well, go with the sound. That's what people are going to hear. They're not going to see the wavelength, are they?" So
that's really interesting. I remember you telling me a tip about time, because it's hard, playing big band music or playing big band lead trumpet, especially in that sort of swagger tempo, around that kind of medium swing tempo, or even slow. This idea that we sort of play behind the beat, you've probably heard of that sort of thing before. Of course you have. And I remember as a kid making a concerted effort to play behind to make a point, and then it would end up sounding contrived and wrong. And you said, maybe you probably have the phrase on the tip of your tongue, what you'd say. What would you say?
If you try to play behind the beat, it's too late. It becomes too late. I see, because the other thing I've learned quite early on was when I was doing those tracking up, I record to a click, and I could see my signal was slightly behind the click all the way through, and I was trying religiously to keep to the click, but the human element comes in, and it's like it was just like slightly, and that will actually sound better than it playing. If you play absolutely on a click, it can sound rushed. But then you talk about the Al Jarreau and all the Jerry Hay stuff. That has to be absolutely on the click, and it sounds perfectly right to do that. But in a big band jazz idiom swing thing, if you do that, it's going to sound rushed and
like MIDI.
Yeah, and so it doesn't matter. See, things don't have to sound perfect, as we just said. It's the humanity in music which makes it sound beautiful, you know. And so that's time is one of my big bugbears. There's two things I think are the most important things in music is sound. Obviously, if you've got create a good sound, that's what people hear. And if you've got a good sound, that's what they want to hear, and that's what they'll book you because you've got a good sound. And of course, time. If you play in time, that's also what people want, and also it makes things sound the way they should.
Yeah. Otherwise, the sound isn't in the right place.
And if you listen to like a lot of the older recordings, like from before the use of click, I often jokingly say to Tom, I said, I don't know how they used to do that without a click, you know, because the click is now it's a very useful tool, especially for editing, and you can't do the thing. You'd be foolish not to use a click in a recording these days. But you have to use it as it's there. But really, the best thing is to give the drummer the click, and then you try and play to the drums. But I always like to have the click as well because it's the way we're used to doing it now. You know.
Well, a lot of it will be down to like competition too. I do wonder when this is going to break. I think it might be breaking right now. I think right in the world, this sort of perfect sound, social media, YouTube. You know, I certainly contributed a little to that in my attitude to my tracks. And this idea that you record something over and over and over again until you get the one, and you know it's the one, and it's the one that you can, when you listen back, it's and it all comes together, and there are degrees to this. You know, you can kill the soul in the music. People talk about soul. I don't think soul necessarily has to mean mistake or bad.
No.
It can be accurate. But it's I do wonder. It's a little bit. I don't know if anyone knows about the loudness war that happened during the creation of CDs with mastering. So once you've finished the recording phase, you go into a mixing phase, and then after the mixing phase, you go to the mastering phase. And the mastering phase is there, like the mixers make sure the track is all in the right place audibly so that you hear the right parts and your attention is correctly dispersed around the orchestra or whatever band you're listening to, rock band, you know, can I hear the guitar solo, etc. Once you've finished the mixing phase, you've pretty much got the production done. All you have to do now is to kind of put the shine on it and make it translate across all different systems, and that's done in the mastering phase. And something happened in the 90s and 2000s where you see the way that the human brain works is that the louder something is, the more attention you will give it. And so people started just pushing the volume on all of these tracks so much so that they squashed to the limit. And ultimately, there was no space left. You know, some of these tracks were so loud and they were starting to distort so much, and they lost all of the soul, and they lost all the punch, and all of the so much compression, so much limiting that was happening and processing. The attention was being taken, but the music died. And I do wonder when we get there on this perfectionist route, you know, and with all the technical stuff that we have and the way that people are growing up with it, I feel like we're kind of shallowing our experience of music itself.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't have the solution to that, and I don't know if you have any comments on it. But
No, I think you've explained pretty much the whole situation. Yeah.
It's interesting. But
Yeah.
so you're currently on MJ the musical,
Yes.
yeah,
Which is
and you've been a kind of a staple in the West End for many years.
Yeah.
Right. You know,
I've been-
kind of
well-
always had a show on the go.
yeah. I mean, doing a show is it pays the bills. It's a great living.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's the same thing 8 times a week, which becomes hard work, shall we say, without being rude.
Yes.
But no, it is hard work, and sometimes it's really easy. You just go in there, do the show, come home. Of course, it does wear you down a bit, so it's good to get time off and take time off if you get booked to other jobs.
I've definitely found since having a family, I've got 2 young boys.
Yeah.
Like it's a testing job with a young family, because I think especially when they go to school, you know, for anyone out there that's not necessarily a professional musician that's doing things like this regularly, if you think 6 times a week, you're leaving the house at say 5:30 most days.
Yeah.
Just when the kids get home ready for dinner, and then they go to bed, you miss bedtime, and then you go to work, and you finish at what is it, 10:30 usually?
10:30 or something,
Usually
yeah,
getting in like 11:30, 12:15, because obviously London is, you know, big and dense. And then you wake up in the morning, the kids are already gone to school because you're tired, because you're kind of running on that time.
Yeah.
It's like having a night shift. And the other thing is, because of the nature of London and the way that work is, you have an hour. You have to kind of be there an hour early every day.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you're there an hour early every day, you're not getting paid for that extra hour. So you have, what is it, like a 2.5 to 3 hour show?
It's normally
You're
about
kinda out of the
2.5
house,
hours, yeah.
Sort of out of the house for 5.
5, and you get home at midnight or whatever. So it's a long day. Just
And then a
for
matinee day is really long.
yeah, and you got 2.
Yeah.
Do it twice. That's even harder, because you do it once and you think, oh, okay, then you got to do it all again. It's like every day you kind of you regroup and it's like you do it. It's a fresh new show.
Yes.
Almost.
And it's a great practice opportunity to keep the chops in, but also to
it is for
test stuff.
I've often called it paid practice, you know, because it does keep your chops in, and you don't have to practice so much at home. You still got to do as much practice as you need or want to, but if you don't want to or don't need to, you don't have to, because you've always got your chops in top shape, because you're doing a good workout every night.
Did you find, I don't know how long it's been for you since you were sat down the section on a show, but if you were, say, on third trumpet on a show, like, did you still feel like you didn't need to practice? Or
interestingly, when I was talked earlier about Guys and Dolls, I was on third trumpet for that show, and I think that was the best my chops ever felt.
No way.
Because you were practicing, playing rather, performing the show, but because you're playing the lower parts, you weren't bruising your chops. So every time I went out to played lead, they were really fresh and felt great, So,
wow.
but you're still working, you're still using all the muscles that you need to use, and yeah, it was great. And of course, that was with Derek, so I was sitting next to the master, the Grand Master.
Yeah.
And we had
when he was in.
Yeah, we had a ball.
Yeah. I guess maybe when you were on that show, you and Derek may have been working outside of the show together quite a lot too.
Yeah, we were doing all sorts of stuff. Obviously, he was heavily involved with all the film stuff, and I've sort of been on the outskirts of that. But I used to do a few bits and bobs film-wise. Did a couple of James Bond films with him, but there's just a couple of sessions within a film,
Yeah.
But we used to do a lot of what you call BPI sessions, where you're working with a pop band and stuff,
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff, really, gigs and stuff. But yeah, we used to work a lot together.
Yeah. The dream team.
A different team in those days. It was John Buckley used to be involved a lot. Steve Sybil in the early days, and then he went into writing.
What would you say the biggest? Maybe this is a big question to ask without any warning, but like, what would you say has been the biggest change you've noticed in the London music scene as a whole? You could bring that to trumpet too, but like just the London music scene as a pro from the first day of your career. At what age would you say your first professional?
I was about 19 or 20.
Okay, so from age of 19 to now.
I suppose the big change when I first started out was that when they decided to give out all the PPL money, which they've been collecting for years and years and years, and it was in a massive big pot in the MU, they decided to distribute it, and so they gave everyone a copy of a form, which you then had to photocopy and write down all the things that you'd done. Recording as a recording artist.
So for anyone out there that's not a professional musician that has to deal with this, PPL is like a mechanical. It's neighbouring rights or something like that. So,
every time it's played on the radio or media, a fee gets paid to the union as it was. Now it's PPL. But when it first started, it was called PAMRA. So I had to go through all my books to look, and it was fascinating because mainly, I was a young man, but mainly the things that I was doing was television shows, because every television show had a band, mainly a big band. Harry Stoneham told me once, he said when he was booking for the Parkinson show years ago, he said in the BBC, which was the BBC complex in White City, they had 8 studios there, and every studio had a full orchestra every day of the week.
Wow.
So you can imagine how many musicians that is being employed to do television shows. Yeah. Now the only show that has a band, and it's not even a band anymore, which is another story which I will not go into, but which is Strictly Come Dancing, which I've been involved with since the beginning. But
how many years is that now?
About 22 years, I think.
There you go.
Yeah. So that was the first big change, because over the next 5 years they started to make the band smaller. Until now, you haven't got any at all. The other things that have happened, when the 9/11 happened, the Americans stopped coming over to England to do, because of obviously the paranoia about flying, and it was only for a short time, but once something changes, it's very hard to go back. Yeah. So a lot of the work
on COVID, same thing.
COVID's exactly the same thing. Yeah, a lot of the work that was around didn't come back.
What would be the number one piece of advice you give to someone coming into the music industry, maybe out of college or maybe didn't go to college? Like, what it could be related to music, it could be related to trumpet, it could be related to being a human, a character, conversation. Like, what if you had one piece of advice? What would it be?
Well, I think a lot of young aspiring musicians these days aspire to do just one or maybe two things, and I think what you need to do is you need to do everything and get your name out there. So you need to go to as many unpaid jobs as you can afford to do, so that people will hear you, and you'll mix with other people, other players, other musicians, and someone will recommend you to do something. It might be another unpaid job. You might get a string of unpaid jobs, and all of a sudden someone says, "Oh, you know what? He can do that," and gradually it snowballs, and that's how we all ended up doing what we're doing.
So the sort of anti-British music industry word of networking, but that's actually what it is, right? Just networking.
Networking, and I mean, there's a lot of people aspire just to do West End theatre, which is that's an honourable form of work, but it's not the most rewarding spiritually kind of work. It's like it is a day job. It's a factory job, really. And I'm not putting it down, because I've earned a good living out of it, and I've enjoyed 90% of it. But it does become hard, and it's not. If you go out and do something like a big band blow on a Sunday morning with a good band, and you get to play lead trumpet or play a few jazz solos, that is fantastic, and you don't get any money for it.
Yeah, you're a wealth of experience and knowledge, and it's been really fascinating talking to you, Si. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing what you've got coming out next and what Tom's going to do. But Thank you very much, buddy.
Pleasure.
I'll see you soon, yeah? Thank you.